Our Target 8 alert revealing what doctors might not be telling you about breast cancer continues this morning on Daybreak. We told you almost 2 years ago now that mammograms can be less effective on dense breast tissue, and we introduced you to a bill that would require doctors to tell women their breast density. Well, last night at 11, Target 8 investigators tracked down the head of the committee where the bill was stalled, who agreed to give it a hearing. This morning, Teresa Hendricks, the woman who's been behind this fight to get this information out to women, and a breast cancer survivor herself, is joining us live in studio. Welcome. The story is really all about how you advocated for yourself. I mean, you learned a lot going through this process, from being diagnosed to your fight with breast cancer. And could you explain to us what you learned about what doctors were not telling you?
Right. After I went through all of the horrendous treatment and the horrible diagnosis, and I brought all of my family and everything through the whole emotional journey with me, I thought, well, how can we prevent this from happening to other women? I found out that having dense breast tissue was actually very common. 50% of us have it. And then I learned that it increases your chances of getting breast cancer by 4 to 6 times. And then, on top of that, I found out that mammograms can hide tumors when you're looking at dense breast tissue. So I thought we need to get this information out to women so they can be their own advocates. We need to find a remedy for all of these women with dense breast tissue so they know not to rely on just the mammogram, and that can give them a false sense of security.
What's interesting is that you're telling me you found out all these things that I feel like I would rely on a doctor to tell me.
Right. The status quo wasn't really to give that kind of information to the patient. It often would go from the radiologist to the referring physician, but some information got lost in communication from the time of the mammogram and the scoring of the density to the actual woman who needs to know what the density is and then how that increases her risk.
So after an exhausting fight with breast cancer, you got mad. You got pretty mad about this.
That's right. I thought, why would we let any other woman go through this? Let's do something where we can remedy this for women in Michigan. And 2 years ago, when I started this fight, there were only 3 states that had this. Now we have 13. And as these states pass these laws with almost zero opposition, we're finding out that there really is a no-brainer.
Right.
The bottom line is you find cancer early and the person lives, or you don't and the person dies. And the stakes don't get any higher than that.
So what's the holdup?
The holdup has been political. It got mired in some controversy, but our persistence and my representative, Winnie Branks, has been determined, and she's passionate about the issue, and she takes women's health issues very seriously. Luckily, we got through to the chair of the health committee with the help of some investigators from Target 8, and she's changed her position, and she's now willing to put it on the agenda so that we can come to a vote. And I've spoken with many representatives on both sides of the aisle who have a strong passion for this as well and want to support it.
So how about, let's start with a woman at age 40. That's the typical mammogram age at this point, but really it should start earlier. What do women need to be asking their doctors?
Well, if I were going to recommend something to a sister or a girlfriend of mine, I would say talk to your doctor about whether or not you need to do some screening tests before age 40, maybe one that doesn't involve radiation. There are many other forms of technology that can find breast cancer. We don't have to just rely on the mammogram, although that is important, and that's the test that gives us our density. We need to know in what cases would we benefit from the MRI or an ultrasound or tomosynthesis or some other type of exam. So
the mammogram is what we hear, but it's not the only thing out there.
Right, that would be your starting point. You might want to start earlier with some tests that don't involve radiation.
Teresa Hendricks, thank you for joining us this morning. You're a courageous woman, and we thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you, Emily.